Hello, and welcome to the final hour of the PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. We have reached the last presentation. This is harmonizing your PeopleSoft user experience and harmonizing with Classic, Classic Plus, and Fluid. Learn how to apply strategies to harmonize the user experience. We're joined by Jim Marion. He is doing his third session with us, only because he is that awesome. We appreciate it, Jim. Before we get started, my name, of course, I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing my voice, but my name is Scott Lavery. I am the head of marketing here at Appsian. Would love to thank everyone for participating, joining, registering, making this happen. It's been a huge success, and we thank you all so much for it. A few housekeeping notes. Of course, everyone is on mute. The session is being recorded, and we will make sure to post all the recordings. They will be featured on that landing page that had all of the registration buttons on it. You will all be able to do free on-demand viewings of each and every session moving forward. So the session, of course, will be 45 minutes as we're all. If you do have any questions, you can certainly put those in the questions section of the control panel. It's on the right side of the screen. You can reach out to Jim personally. He would love to get in touch with you. But if you do end up putting the questions in the control panel, we'll likely reach out to you with that at a later date. So with that, I will now turn it over to Jim to take us home and close out the People Innovation Summit. Jim.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you also for inviting me to all these sessions. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm so awesome. I'm here at invitation, and I really appreciate having the invitation and opportunity to share with the PeopleSoft community, which is exactly why I exist. It's what I've been doing for decades, sharing as much as I can with the PeopleSoft community. So briefly, who am I? Just for those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, who maybe perhaps weren't on one of the other sessions. My name is Jim Marion, been in the PeopleSoft community for roughly a couple of decades. Just to be honest, I don't remember how long. And if I told you, you'd know how old I was. But I can tell you, I was a PeopleSoft customer before starting for Oracle, and then had a good run of 10 years, a good decade at Oracle. Before then, working with the Appsian team as an employee and then as a partner now with our own business, again, continuing on recognizing our vision, our strategy, that my passion was to share people tools with the world. And I thought, how better to do that than to become a people tools instructor with our own business, sharing people tools with the world. So that's what we do today. Many of you may have our books on your shelves. If you don't, hey, it's a great way to get some of that people tools training for, well, very low cost. And that's what we do today, offer people tools training. So what we're going to talk about today is harmonizing the PeopleSoft user experience. The PeopleSoft user experience has changed over time. Some of that is still with us today. You know, if you look at the screen that I have up there, the slide, you'll notice the history of PeopleSoft applications going way back to what it looked like perhaps on the Windows, more like a Windows 3.1 style user interface there, up to perhaps the Windows 95, and then right around the turn of the century when it first started seeing our initial releases on PeopleTools 8.4.2, and then seeing the steady progression thereafter. Now, some of this here, well, if you look at these slides in the background there, they all look the same. Kind of wild, huh? I mean, as PeopleSoft moved into the web-based user experience, where we have an infinite, unlimited number of potentials for changing the user experience, PeopleSoft remained the same. That's kind of weird. Why is that? Well, if you look at the old, what was there for Windows 95, you notice it's probably designed for, say, a 1024 by 768 screen size because, well, that's what we had. And Y2K, turn of the century, we see PeopleSoft become web-based, and what did they release on? 1024 by 768 monitors. So of course it looks exactly the same. Well, over time, something changed. We're no longer releasing for just one form factor anymore, are we? There's a variety of form factors available. And so now we have to plan and develop for a variety of form factors. We can't just release for just one form factor. But if you look at the PeopleSoft experience over time, it really hasn't changed in the back office. It's still designed for those 1024 by 768 monitors. Now the front office, what we see here, has been transformed into what we have the fluid user experience today, which I have to tell you is pretty amazing. But if we look at PeopleSoft and we look at the statistics, we look at the number of components that are out there, somewhere between 93 and 97% of the PeopleSoft application is back office functionality. And that back office functionality today is still classic. Now that's changing over time. What we saw with the initial release of Fluid was Oracle did a massive build out of employee self-service and manager self-service. Why? Well, if you look at the user base along a bell curve, what you see is that about 90% of our user base is that employee self-service. So Oracle could say, hey, we covered about 90% of your use cases in Fluid. But if you look at the depth of the application, it's really only about 5% of the application. Why is that? Because the other 10% of our user base, flip that bell curve over, they represent about 90% of the usage time within the PeopleSoft application. See that employee self-service user, they're about 10 to 20% of our user of the actual usage time, aren't they? Most of our user base, but a small amount of actual PeopleSoft usage time. They're casual users. They log in just enough to enter their time, view their expense reports, view their pay slip, whatever they absolutely have to, the bare minimum. They get into PeopleSoft as little as possible, and that makes sense. It's not their job. So what we're left with today is, you might say, a disjointed user experience, and that we have this classic experience here. We have Classic Plus, which I don't have a screenshot of that, and then we have Fluid. This is what Fluid looks like here. Now, the difference between Fluid and the others, Classic and Classic Plus, is that Fluid is responsive. Here, let me show you. So I happen to have some liquid here in a jar, and the liquid, well, how tall is it? Well, the answer to that isn't, a fixed measurement. It's actually a question. The question is, how wide is your jar? And what's the volume of liquid? That's going to tell me how tall it is, right? Because the height of the liquid inside this jar changes with the shape, or you might say, the form factor of the jar. So that's the idea behind Fluid, and that's why we call it the Fluid user experience, is because, well, the content is kind of fluid. It changes with the shape of the container, allowing us to render content on a variety of different form factors. Now, I'm just going to tell you a little secret here. Fluid isn't mobile. Yeah, that's right. Fluid has the potential to be mobile, but Fluid by itself is not mobile. And see, that stands in contrast to Classic. See, Classic didn't even have the potential to be mobile. And that's a key difference between Classic and Fluid. Anyway, let's talk about harmonizing these different user experiences through an example. So I'm logged in here to a PeopleSoft instance, and in this PeopleSoft instance, I have a custom bolt-on module. It's one that I built. And in this custom bolt-on module, it has, well, it's Classic, and what we call Classic Plus, but it's wrapped in a Fluid container. So what we end up with is a sort of disjointed user experience. See, with the Fluid, well, here, let's drill into a transaction first. How about this one? This is a really complicated transaction, lots of wide. Oh, that's wide, isn't it? Doesn't look that wide when you look at it here. Let's see, let's zoom in. There we go. Now it's nice and wide. Okay, so what we have is a responsive sidebar. Too wide. Okay, in 857 and earlier, what you have is a responsive sidebar. Maybe I never noticed that in 858. If you put the button there, anyway, the instructor needs to go back to school. Here, let me show you a different example. Approvals. Pretend our classic content was wrapped inside of the same sidebar here. And this is how you know it's a real live demo. There we go. Wait for cache. It's always cache's fault. So you can see the responsive nature of the content. This is Fluid content. It's filling the container, and it's resizing, reshaping itself based on the size of the container. Okay, now let's go back and look at our custom training module, which is Classic and Classic Plus wrapped in a Fluid container. Now the Classic content, it kind of looks Well, wrong. So what I want to talk to you about is how can we present a cohesive user experience across a variety of different options, Fluid, Classic, and Classic Plus. Well, I'll tell you, the easiest way is just to go into your component and turn on Classic Plus. Let's do that right now. So the name of my component, I'm going to get that with a Control J here. Component name TRNCRSE and then an App Designer. Let's go ahead and open that component. And then in the component properties, I'll go to the Style tab, and it's right here. I'm just going to check the box, Classic Plus. And click the OK button, save, and then reload. Oh, you guys ever get annoyed with reload? See, I want to test this, don't I? I want to see what does it look like with Classic Plus. But you know what's going to happen when I hit the refresh button? It's going to take me back to training courses, then to create course sessions. I'm going to search for an instance. Ah, so annoying, isn't it? I put together, here, I'll just give you a gift with purchase. Oh, this is free, isn't it? Gift with attendance. Okay, I'll give you we'll be sure to pass this along to you. Basically, it's just what I call a bookmarklet. It's just a URL. It's actually a JavaScript fragment you can drag into your URL there. And then here, let's do this. Let's search for an instance, PC1. So we have our nice classic page here. Did I say nice? Anyway, I'm going to click on refreshable URL, and when it refreshes, I'm going to be looking at that exact information. But now it is a Classic Plus. Ooh, it looks a lot like Fluid, doesn't it? But it isn't Fluid because it doesn't resize with the container. Okay, so what can we do about that? Again, harmonizing the user experience. So going back to where we have and we want a cohesive user experience where the content that's wrapped perhaps in a Fluid, what we call this is a business process-based navigation. When you have content wrapped in that business process-based navigation, does it look like it's supposed to be there? Or does it look like it was, I don't know, from last century? Now, what if we wanted to take this a step further? What if we wanted to convert it to Fluid? What would that look like, or how would you go about that? I picked this component because it is a little bit more complicated than the others that are in this business process here. But hey, I see columns here, and if you were in our session yesterday, we talked about the 2-column layout, or actually the 3-column layout, and what you can do to get a columnar layout in Fluid. Okay, let's just try it out. Let's just see, what would this look like if we were to convert this to Fluid? Now, Oracle has a document out there telling you how to convert from Classic to Fluid. I'll tell you, it's an awesome read through once. I just won't do it. When Oracle released Fluid, they had to give us Classic and Fluid side by side, coexist, allow us to choose. And here I have a slide with some details on that to allow us to choose, with a caveat, and that caveat is that they will retire those Classic pages at some time. Once the Fluid version reaches functional equivalency, they retire the Classic version. I mean, that makes total sense. Do we really expect a vendor to provide support for 2 versions of something? No, at some point they need to focus. We want them to focus on the other version. Take your resources and put them where they're going to help us. Don't keep supporting something that we probably shouldn't be using anyway. That takes away from adding additional benefits. So we don't want them to continue supporting these things indefinitely. Anyway, if I'm going to convert, I'm going to take this component we have open here, and I'm going to start with the Classic component. We don't need it to be Classic Plus anymore. I'm going to go to the Fluid. I'm going to check the Fluid mode checkbox. Press save. And hey, let's get rid of the Fluid wrapper there for a minute. Let's just see it. Let's just go Fluid. Let's refresh this thing. See it back here on the page. Oh, awesome. Kind of. Kind of awesome. I have a problem. There's some fields down there. I can't scroll to them. I have another problem. The layout is just totally messed up. Hey, we aren't going to have time here in the 45 minutes we have together to fix the entire layout, but let's just take a minute and let's talk through some of those things that we could do with Fluid development to fix the issues we see here. So drilling into the page, first thing I need to do, every Fluid page needs to have an outer wrapper. So I need a group box out here to contain all of this content. So I'm going to open the properties. I don't have room. I don't have room to put that outer wrapper. So, 800 by 600, 24 by 768. Wow, does anyone still have a monitor that's that size? Wait, don't answer. If you do, don't answer that. And to be fair, I've been in a lot of computer labs in our training courses, and I've seen a lot of these older monitors out there. 16 by 9 would be your typical resolution today, huh? These are your old 4:3. Anyway, I'm gonna go to custom size here and say, okay, it's gonna allow me to stretch this out. Hey, one of the things we covered yesterday, size doesn't really matter. Make the page as big as you want it to be. It doesn't matter anymore. So now I'm going to select all this content to give myself some room, and I'm just going to move it. Just kidding, it doesn't want to move. And let's try again. It still doesn't want to move. That's awesome. And I don't want to move all of these items one at a time. You don't want to watch me move all those items one at a time. Yeah. All right. Let's punt. Well, here, I do want to show you a couple. Let's do this. Let's do this. I was going to say, let's go for a simpler page. Let's just do this. We can wrap this here. We can go to the order tab. We can fix it. Let's see, label, clear, and go to the fluid tab. Oops. We can do one more thing. We need to mark this as fluid. Use, fluid page, and then on the fluid tab, PS, apps, content. You see, yesterday when we were together, I created a new fluid page and I did it using a fluid layout. It's called the PSL_apps content. You know what you get for free with that? One group box. And you know what how it's defined? Just like this. Just like this, group box type layout only with the style class PS apps content. So you know what I've done here effectively? I've recreated the PS apps content layout over the top of my existing content. Now we want a lot more space here. So, wow, resize? No? You know, I see an app designer restart in my future. That's always the answer, isn't it? Restart app designer. Let's see. Elemental P, practice my alphabet there. PS is my, did I say my password out loud? I'm sure nobody knew that was my password, PS. Okay, let's reload. Okay, cool. Now at least we have our scroll bars back, but we still have some problems. The layout's a problem. We're not gonna have time to fix all the layout. We have another problem here. There's actually 2 rows here. This is a scroll area. There are 2 rows here. I can clearly insert new rows into my scroll area, but how do I get through the rows that are there? That seems like a problem, doesn't it? Buttons aren't free. Buttons aren't free in Fluid. So let's open our page back up. Let's go ahead and let's add those buttons. And then let's see, can we stretch this dude out now? Awesome. Okay, we can probably move these guys now as well. Or not, never mind, we'll stop trying. Okay, I need to, seriously. I need more room in here though for those buttons. So I'm going to just move these guys around. It's not going to be the prettiest. Does it matter? No, actually it doesn't. Why? Because it's fluid, and appearance doesn't matter in fluid because the fluid rendering engine is going to take care of that for us. Okay, so here's what I want. I want a scroll action. This one is going to be for action type, next, and related to course sessions. So this is going to be my next button. Let's use a label. How about next? Or maybe we should be using arrows as image types. Maybe that's an idea. Or here's an idea, PSC_button-next. This is our next button. So we have it labeled as next. Okay, awesome. So since it's our next button, let's put it over here. And how about a previous button as well? And let's change the label, previous, and use the style class PSC button-previous. Question you might have, how did Jim know about those style classes, PSC button-next and PSC button-previous? They're actually documented in the Fluid UI CSS guide, which is available on my Oracle support. But even better, we can find examples of these and what they look like in the Fluid UX Design Standards, which is an HTML document that's freely available, no MOS login. You can go right there and look at it. You know what I want to do? These buttons here, they're going to appear on the left. They're going to appear kind of merged in between session number and start date. Here's what I want to do. I want to wrap a group box around them because I actually want them to appear on the right, and I want them to appear above all the other content. Whether or not it works out for us may or may not happen. It kind of depends on the order tab. I also want to push that content down, but you saw you don't want me to move every field here. We're going to be here for the next hour if I have to do that. Let's go with PSC H-align dash right. So it'll move all those buttons to the right. Group box type layout only. Looks good. There's no label over the group box. Oh man, if I were doing this for real life, I would make this group box bigger, put a little bit of documentation there in the label since the label's not visible to anyone else anyways. And let's go to the order tab and let's say scroll area, group box, push button, session number. Awesome. Okay, they're already above in the order tab, so I think we're going to be good there. Let's reload this guy and take a look. Oops, I forgot to associate those buttons. Back to App Designer, previous button is associated with scroll action, action type next, related control. I thought for sure I did that. That's the previous button. Oh yes, and previous should also be attached to previous, shouldn't it? It's the next button I did. Kind of funny, isn't it? I did a copy paste there. You would have thought that it would kept that. Interesting thing, I'll tell you, I've done a little bit of copy pasting and I've done copy pasting of groups. And the interesting thing about copy paste of groups is that PeopleSoft will actually, it depends, it doesn't always happen, scramble the style classes between all of them. So I no longer copy paste groups anymore. You do have to be a little bit careful with copy paste, but hey, there you go. You know, I kind of wish those previous next buttons were up here, don't you? Actually, I can't really do that. Instead, what we can do is turn off these buttons and move them down here. So you have one little toolbar. Wild, isn't that supposed to be at the top? Yeah, I kind of wish it was. We could probably fix that by moving these all down a little bit, but again, I don't think you want to watch me waste time with that. Hey, one more thing though I think I should do before we move on. Let's fix a related display control issue. Here's one right here. Related display control issue. And the issue is that the display control is underneath the related, sorry, the related is under the display control. There is a trick for that. And those of you that were in our Developer Day webinar in August, we shared that. What we do, it's a layout issue. Yesterday we talked about that. Anytime you have a layout issue, the answer is always a group box. So PSC underscore H align, sorry, PSC rel disp dash container. PSC rel disp dash container. That's a style class we want to use here. Group box type layout only. And again, this is documented in the Fluid UI CSS guide. And then for each of the items within that container, we add a style class, PSC underscore rel disp dash value field. I'll copy this because the other ones like it. PSC rel disp dash value. Okay, save, and let's reload. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Still a couple things we should talk about here. I mean, you can clearly see I've got a lot more layout I need to do. I need to get to the 2-column layout. Got a few more rel disp dash containers to fix there. That's a little bit on the weird side. That guy doesn't look right, does he? Oftentimes I find that when we're missing default values for fields or fields don't have values stored at the database level, they'll display funny. If you find that you just can't fix the display funny part, we can go back here and we can change it to basic control structure. There it is, value not found in translate table. That's why I'm using yes, no's with a translate table with no values. That's why it's displaying funny. If you decide you don't want to fix that, you can always revert back to the basic control type, which is standard HTML. I got my work cut out for me, don't I? Do you see that? Okay, so what are our delivered options for harmonizing the UI? Well, we can live with it, not do anything. We can convert our Classic components to Classic Plus. That's easy. That's a checkbox. Check the box, you're done. That's clearly low-hanging fruit. You can walk by the tree and grab that one. Your child can walk by the tree and grab that one. That's how low that fruit is. So that one's a piece of cake. I do that one. I wouldn't even think about it. But this fluid conversion thing, I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say it's really hard either. It's just, you're going to have to reach for that one. You're going to have to get the ladder out to pick that fruit, aren't you? Yeah. So, Oh, here's a question. What about delivered components? Because remember what I said, 95% of PeopleSoft is still Classic on the back end. Now that's changing. I don't know if you guys have been watching, like for example, in HR, I mentioned this in our last session, job data is by far my favorite component. It's probably one of the most important components in HR. I've been watching the job data redesign in some of the videos and blog posts and things. It's pretty cool what they have coming out. And it's all fluid. It's pretty cool. So we see that there's a simplified journal entry, backups. Oh, simplified journal entry in Fluid. Does that mean it's mobile ready? You know, take a look at the docs on that. I don't think it is. I don't think the docs say mobile. Why is that? Because the search page for the mobile, or the search page for the simplified journal entry uses pivot grids. And pivot grids today, unless something changed recently, pivot grids are not supported on small form factor devices, which, you know what, I actually cheated here. Let me show you what this thing looks like. It gets worse. Oh no, search doesn't work in Fluid? No, it doesn't. Is there a simple solution for it? Haha. Well, no. Let's just say the answer is no. Now, there is a prototyping solution, yes. Search page type to standard, and we can insert an Oracle delivered page here. I'm going to tell you because my Oracle support says this. Don't do this. Don't do this in production, folks. Let's see. PT search page. Actually, if you look at PeopleBooks for 854, it said do this. And then if you look at PeopleBooks for 855, you notice, hey, this is suspiciously missing. And then you look at my Oracle support to try to find out why. It's because there's this really cool page that they delivered for us that does look at the search record metadata, but it doesn't really work. It's for prototyping purposes only. So search is yet another one of those things we have to deal with. What's your search strategy going forward when you build out, when you migrate from Classic to Fluid? You'll notice that everything delivered by Oracle, there's no search. Manager self-service, employee self-service. When was the last time you hit a search page on a manager self-service or employee self-service component? You didn't, did you? Why? Because the logged in user is the level 0 search key. You don't need search. But as we start working back office, we start seeing some very interesting tricks as PeopleSoft starts working around this issue of how do we search when search is not part of Fluid. Pivot grid search, that's Oracle's recommended search strategy. Not supported, okay, on mobile, not supported on mobile. So that's not a search strategy, is it? Elasticsearch, the search framework. Hey, that's awesome, but it's also stale. It's based on when was the last time you ran your indexes. What are we left with? Building your own search component. You'll find a few of those delivered. It was an HR specific. It was the HR activity guide composer under setup HRMS. It's been moved into enterprise components now to be activity guide composer. It uses Fluid and it uses a search page in front of Fluid, but it's a special component. If you watch, when you select a row, it redirects you somewhere else. You know, a lot of those things we used to get for free in Classic, not so much anymore. Well, is there another option out there that doesn't require me to modify the Oracle delivered components? See, if I choose Classic Plus, that's a modification. Now there is a configuration, a configuration page Oracle has given us to turn Classic Plus on and off on a per component basis. But hey, you're modifying Oracle delivered metadata. So what does that mean? If Oracle delivers any sort of update to that component, they're turning that option back off again. They're changing it on you. So it's on you to maintain that. You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like a lifecycle management issue. That sounds like a customization, even from a configuration page. Hey, this is what it comes down to. Did you change Oracle delivered metadata? I don't care if you're talking a Fluid Approvals page composer. Did you change Oracle delivered metadata? Yes, you did. It's a customization. I don't care if you did it online, you did an app designer. That's the simple definition I give to it. Call it what you want it. I call it a customization. is there a way that I can get a cohesive user experience without modifying an Oracle delivered definition? Can I get responsive and mobile without modifying an Oracle delivered definition? And the answer is yes, but not with People Tools exclusively. Let me introduce you to PeopleUX, another option, another alternative for harmonizing. There we go. Had to think of the word. Harmonizing the user experience. So I'll sign in here as a student. And for the student, I'm going to drill into my classes. Now in my classes here, actually, you know what? Here, let's be fair. Let's drill into some of the Oracle delivered content. And we can see there's some pretty nice stuff out here delivered on Fluid. Showing us what this looks like from the Fluid user experience. But hey, it doesn't cover the entire the entire student self-service experience. Is enough of it there that you could say, you know what, this is what they used to have in Campus Solutions. But if they want to go mobile, here, we'll give them this much. Okay, you could do that. But what if you want the entire experience? Like, for example, this is one of my favorites here. This is student class schedule. You know, my oldest, she graduated last year. Christmas time, so it's been almost a year since she graduated from university. She's at a university that uses PeopleSoft, and when she started there, they were on Classic. And her first semester, first week of school, I said, hey, you know, in case you have, I want to get a hold of you or anything, I don't want to bother you while you're in classes, just in case you forget to turn off your phone or something like that. So here, why don't you do this? If you don't mind, just send me your schedule. So let me know when you're in class so I don't interrupt you. And she said, sure, Dad. A couple minutes later, I get a screenshot, a mobile device text message screenshot of this. I'm like, what is that? See, our students, our employees, they're using this classic stuff on small form factor devices, even though Oracle hasn't given it to us in small form factor. So is there a way that we could represent this without having to recreate it in Fluid since Oracle hasn't given it to us yet? Or here's a situation you might be in. Maybe Oracle has given a lot of Fluid, but you haven't uptaken that Fluid yet. Maybe, for example, you're still in Campus Solutions 9.0. You know what? This is 9.2. 9.0 hasn't been retired yet. In fact, Campus is a little bit unique in that Oracle has not set any retirement dates for anything Campus Solutions related. Remember I talked about that earlier. HR and financials, basically you have 2 years from functional equivalency and Oracle decides what is functional equivalency. Campus Solutions, no retirement dates. You could stay classic forever if you wanted to, but what would your users do? How do you help out your students? How do you provide that cohesive user experience as you start perhaps merging into Fluid and delivering a little bit of Fluid on top of maybe Classic? So let me share with you the Appsian UX product. I'm going to log in as that same student, 0067, and we're going to see the Fluid user experience represented looking much like Fluid. And if I were to drill into academic records, we would see the Fluid user experience with the, the same content with its nice iconography images there for each of the items. But on the desktop, and here, let's do it like this. So you can see both side by side. On the desktop, we saw the grid rendering horizontally. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that Fluid is not mobile. And the example that I was showing you was a scroll area, so we didn't get to experience it. The primary thing that keeps Fluid pages from being mobile is grids. Grids don't break over into a vertical rendering. A grid will stay horizontal. And so what we see here is the PeopleUX product transforming that grid into a vertical rendering rather than a horizontal rendering. All right, let's try something else. How about, let's return home. And let's take a look at, say, for example, that classic content and my class schedule. So here's what my class schedule looks like on the left on the desktop, and then on the right here, give it a minute here for cache to build, etc. And we see the class schedule, but this time using a different layout where we can it actually fits all on the screen. Or here, what about this? What if we switch over into a, take our phone and rotate landscape to portrait, or sorry, yeah, portrait to landscape. Then we see the same content, but we can scroll through the content and we can see multiple days. So you're looking at your class schedule, you're like, oh, hey, that's better. And now I can see the whole week at once. So the PeopleUX team, the Appsian PeopleUX team, they've gone through a lot of the common use cases, such as the class schedule, and they have what we call curated a lot of that content so that it renders well. Whether you're talking HR and benefits and employee self-service, or whether you're talking campus solutions. And the real benefit of this, another benefit, besides the cohesive or harmonized user experience, is that PeopleUX really doesn't care what people tools release you're at or what apps release you're at. It's going to apply across all of those. So it's not a matter of, oh, we'd really love to see that on mobile, but we have to wait till we have time to do functional testing against all of the modules that come with that PUM image. No, just lay the Appsian PeopleUX over the top of the PeopleSoft user experience and watch PeopleUX transform that existing classic user experience into a common, similar, cohesive user experience, whether it's classic or fluid, responsive, and similar iconography, similar colors, similar branding, etc. With that, we have just under 10 minutes left for questions. So let me go through these cases here. They're in the slides. Of course, you have the recording. So if you want to, you can stop and pause on the slide. So I don't have to read each of them out to you and let you know, hey, what's available. But instead you can review those on your own time. You can see there's a ton of them out here. I specifically have here just the campus solutions and student financials, but we have another data sheet for HR. So please feel free to reach out to your Appsian solutions team to find out what else they have in the HR and financials space as well. With that, though, I do want to leave some time for questions. I see there are a couple of questions in the Q&A. Scott, I want to turn that over to you, though, if you wouldn't mind moderating the Q&A and let me know what's out there. What kind of questions can we answer?
Sure, and can certainly do that. Let me review here. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free. First and foremost, what version of PeopleTools has Classic Plus?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. 8.5.5 delivered that at the applications level. So as soon as you uptake PeopleTools 8.5.5, you have the ability to check the box on any component to make it Classic Plus. Now, I will tell you that you can go to custom components, Oracle delivered components and make them Classic Plus. I wouldn't do that because PeopleSoft has pretty much already done that. They ran through over a couple of PUM images right around about the 8.5.5 release, and they flipped the switch. I should say they did that in HR and financials. Campus Solutions is a different story. The PUM images that I've seen, Campus Solutions pretty much shied away from Classic Plus. In fact, HR and financials through Enterprise Components gave us a metadata repository with all of the components and their delivered state and their current state, allowing you to select all the components from a particular module, or just say flat all the components in the HR system and say, make them all Classic Plus. Just check one box, click a button, hit the run button in Process Scheduler. It runs an app engine and changes all the metadata for you. Campus Solutions did not do that. You're still welcome to do it yourself. Just know that there's no easy button in Campus Solutions for that. Instead, it's on us to go back through the branding and change the branding options to use the Classic Plus style sheet for Classic. Great question. Other questions?
Sure. You said we could stay on Classic forever. Can we go to PeopleTools 8.5.8 without Fluid?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Classic and Fluid, they're two entirely different rendering engines, and I'm on 8.5.8 right here. We used 8.5.8 today. We used Classic without Classic Plus even. In fact, there's a switch. If you decide you don't even want Classic Plus because that looks like Fluid and you're not doing Fluid, flip it off at the global level. It's a branding setting. It's really that simple. It's one drop-down list, or using enterprise components, it's a checkbox. It's that simple to turn Classic Plus on and off. You don't have to have Fluid. Now, when I said that you could stay Classic forever, let's clarify. You can stay Classic forever in HR and financials if you don't intend to log any bugs against any of the Oracle retired Classic components. You can stay Classic forever. Then again, people often ask the question, how much am I really getting out of my Oracle support anyway? No, let me clarify there. What did he mean by that? What he meant was a lot of us don't have the time to get current anyway because of the testing and the upgrade. So a lot of us aren't applying those releases till they're out of date anyway. So you've already made that decision to not be current. Okay, that's HR and financials. Campus Solutions is different. Campus Solutions has not set retirement dates for Classic. So yes, you can stay Classic forever. And PeopleUX over the top of Classic forever is an outstanding solution if that's what you choose. Great question.
Okay, awesome. So let's see here. There's a PeopleUX question. Sure, why not throw that in there? What is the typical work effort for, I'm assuming this is development work effort, for PeopleUX compared to doing the equivalent work in Fluid?
That's a great question. We teach a PeopleUX class on how to curate components with PeopleUX if you're interested. But the Appsian licensing model is such that they'll license you PeopleUX by itself as the runtime. But the recommendation is you also buy some services on top of that, where they will do the curation for you. So I guess what I would say is that the amount of effort for PeopleUX kind of depends on how much effort do you want to put in. The PeopleUX product will do a baseline transform, and you could stop there if you want to. But more than likely, you're going to say, okay, no, I think we want to do a little bit more than that. One customer, for example, they took the PeopleUX product and they said, hey, we have web developers, not PeopleSoft developers. We have web developers. And that's really the value of PeopleUX from a curation perspective is, if you're talking PeopleSoft developers, they're like, okay, let's work with the branding skins and themes in the branding module, working with structured style sheets as App Designer does it. Your web developers don't know PeopleSoft. You know what your web developers know? They know how to right click on a page inside in a web browser and go into the inspector tools there and start mocking up CSS to see how it changes. Okay, the problem that we have with PeopleSoft is now you and I have to take that, oftentimes a PeopleSoft developer has to take those pieces and figure out how to retrofit them into PeopleSoft. What the PeopleUX plugin gives you, the transformation engine over the top, is your web developer can now write true CSS, JavaScript, and HTML, the language they understand in their browser, copy, paste, and put that into an add-in module without having to figure out how to retrofit that into PeopleSoft. So the question comes up often, how much work is it? It's just standard web development. PeopleUX gives you a baseline transform, and then you start writing HTML, JavaScript, and CSS from there on out. The challenge, though, is what's your skill set? Are you a web developer or are you a PeopleSoft developer? Okay, if you're a PeopleSoft developer and you're going Fluid, that's a challenge because you have to learn web development. If you're a PeopleSoft developer going PeopleUX, that's a little bit of a challenge too because you have to learn web development. But if you're a web developer going PeopleUX, you're doing web development. You don't have to learn PeopleSoft. Great question. I didn't answer that straight. I didn't say, hey, this is the number of hours, this is the number of hours, because it is very different. It depends on the module that you're working with. What do you want to do with it? See, because PeopleUX is a transformation engine, strips it down to its bare data and representation online, and then allows you to build it back up however you want, which may be totally different than the PeopleSoft application. I'll give you an example. Anyone use Ben Admin? Oh, I don't want to be mean to the HR team that built that. That has got to be one of the ugliest modules I've seen still in use today at a lot of sites. Now, the Fluid stuff, beautiful, beautiful. But the Fluid stuff wasn't there for a long time. Ben Admin, let me clarify. Ben Admin today in Fluid is beautiful. But I'll tell you, trying to select your benefits in Ben Admin in the Classic, I'll tell you, I looked up here and I said, okay, this is what this one does, that's what this one does. Okay, how do they compare out in a pivot chart? That's what I want to see. This is the benefit. These are the different plan options. That's not how it lays out in Ben Admin. So using PeopleUX, we said, okay, it's not enough to just make it mobile. Let's transform it so that we are laying it out that way. We did that using PeopleUX. Now, I'll tell you, that was not a simple, that wasn't just apply the transform and you're done. There was some effort in that. But think about what we did there. And the best thing about it is it was We didn't touch the underlying code, allowing updates to happen behind the scenes, but completely transforming the user interface on top of that. If you have an easy one, we can take another question. Otherwise, I know we're at time, and I want to be respectful of people's time.
For sure. Yeah, and we do have time for one more question. I've seen a couple of questions come up around learning more about PeopleUX. Appsian does have information about PeopleUX on appsian.com, but we actually have a special site just for PeopleUX. And so if anyone's interested, they can go to peopleux.com, just as you're seeing it right there in the logo, peopleux.com. You can also get some information by going to the product section of appsian.com, and you will find a little PeopleUX logo. So you can get there either way. info@appsian.com works just as well. So last question. I'm on PeopleTools 85716, and I've just opened a few components and can't find the Classic Plus checkbox. Is there something else that has to be turned on first?
Okay, so the question that I have to ask back is the component you're looking at a fluid component. See, because as soon as you check the box for fluid, let's go back here. Sorry. This is supposed to be a quick question, right? So once you check the box for fluid, the other tab goes away. Uncheck the box for fluid, and the style tab comes back. You can't check the box if you don't have the style tab. If it's a fluid component, no style tab. Without fluid, we get the style tab. That's the answer to that one. Great question.
Cool. Okay, that might be it. Jim, any parting thoughts?
Well, we do offer everything I've shown here, we offer that as a training class. So if you want to learn Classic Plus, we cover that in our Delta class. If you want to learn Fluid, we have a Fluid class coming up in November. You're welcome to register for that. Group discounts apply, or if you have a large group, schedule some time with us and we'll give you a private lesson specifically tailored to you. We also teach PeopleUX as well. So if you are interested in learning more about curations with PeopleUX, or you own PeopleUX and you're saying, I want to be able to curate some of these PeopleUX pages myself, give us a call. We'd be happy to set up a course for you and your organization. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate the presentation. Obviously, appreciate everybody who joined today, who also joined yesterday. I would encourage everybody to learn more about JSMpros, what Jim is doing. He mentioned PeopleUX, so peopleux.com. Obviously, Appsian, we'd love to chat with you guys about anything that you have coming up as far as user experience projects for PeopleSoft. I've been mentioning this on all the sessions, but we'll do it one last time since we're closing out, and that's we are planning future PeopleSoft Innovation Summits. The planning is happening right now. Everybody will be receiving a survey on Friday. Our team has been working extremely hard to make sure that the content that you guys want is as relevant as humanly possible, and we would love your feedback to see how we can improve there. So please keep an eye out for that survey. Please fill it out. We're actually giving away a set of Apple AirPods to one lucky person who fills out the information. So we appreciate you doing that. We would certainly appreciate you to, if you would follow Appsian on LinkedIn and Twitter. All of our events, PeopleSoft Innovation Summits, future webinars, wherever we happen to be, it will all be there. And it will also be at www.appsian.com. So on behalf of everyone, on behalf of the entire Appsian PeopleUX team, we would just really like to thank Jim, some of our other presenters at Astute Business Solutions and Duo and Thales and PS Admin, the list goes on and on. We thank you guys all so much for making this a success, and we look forward to seeing everybody on a future event. We will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.